Good morning.
Good morning.
You're going to hear from me twice. First, I'm going to give kind of a historical background to ethnic studies, and then my colleagues will go and I'll also present later on about some of the things that Katie raised. So the first image. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. So I'm a fifth generation Chinese American. On my grandfather's side of the family, his grandparents were here during the gold rush period, and they had a Chinese dry goods tobacco store in San Francisco, Chinatown. I found information about them in 1857. And then my great-grandfather, Jim Singh, or Wong Sao-Siu, immigrated from China. We estimate about 1863, 64, and he worked on the Transcontinental Railroad. And later on, he was a China boss man in the timber industry in Red Bluff, California. So I kind of grew up kind of on multiple levels. One level was as a long-time American-born family, and on the other side, my father immigrated from China in 1928. And my name says Gregory Albert Mark on my birth certificate, and Gregory because my mom, being an American-born Chinese, loved Gregory Peck. Albert because my grandfather's name was Albert, and Mark, or Mock, because that's the name that my father bought in China. So my real last name is Yee, which I use now, Gregory Yee Mark, professionally. And so I grew up with kind of dual identities. On one level, within the Chinese American community, we were Yees, and that's all we knew. Outside, I was a Mark. And so I grew up this way without thinking that it was any big deal. It's just like the way it was. But yet, it kind of left really a hunger in me to really learn more about myself. And as I grew older, why this is so. And then also growing up in California, in fact, in Berkeley, California, I wondered why there was only one sentence I remember in high school about the Chinese Americans, and that, that we helped build the Transcontinental Railroad. That was it, one sentence. And so by the time I went to college, I was really kind of caught up in different things. And so right over here is an image in 1968 when I was a student at UC Berkeley. And so this image is August 17, 1968, the first demonstration in a contemporary Chinatown. And that's, this is San Francisco Chinatown on the corner of Clay and Grant Avenue. Some of you may recognize the corner. And the first person there is Yuji Ichioka, and Yuji is the one who coined the term Asian American. The second person is George Wu, who at that time was the spokesperson for the first Chinese immigrant youth gang of Wangqing. And 1, 2, 3, 4. And the fifth person has a poster there that says, "Look around you, Chinatown's a ghetto," and that's me. And I learned quickly that when you're demonstrating, you shouldn't smile. So after that, when I'm smiling, and shortly after that was the student strikes at San Francisco State College, which later now is San Francisco State University, in November 1968. And then UC Berkeley, January 1969. Both strikes ended in March 1969, and the San Francisco State strike was was the longest strike on a student campus. And, you know, when I teach ethnic studies, and if you include the very first Asian American class where I was like an assistant TA, so I've been doing this for 50 years. And, but it just didn't come about like computer science or recently history or math. We had to fight for it. And so at Berkeley, we had to deal with 5 levels of law enforcement. And this one is level 4, the blue meanies, as we called them, the Alameda County Sheriffs. And this is one striker, Stan Kodani. I will not use his last name, but there's Stan there. And that's what it's like. That's in front of Sproul Hall for any of the UC Berkeley former students. And this is a suite by this level would be the California Highway Patrol. Do some of you remember this? No? And this is Jeff Doan, who is a poet. He wrote a book on Angel Island, a translation of the Poetries on the Walls. And he's reading off the list of demands for the creation of a third world college. And then it became ethnic studies. But originally the demands at both San Francisco and at Berkeley were for a third world college. And over here, there's Stan on the left again, and in front is one of the youngest leader of the Asian American contingent, and that's Floyd Ewing. And preceding this, as Katie mentioned, was the first Asian American conference. There had been conferences on China, on Japan, some on Japanese American, some on Chinese American, but never Pan-Asian American. And so this was the very first one. And if you could see the date, let's see, the date there, January 11th, 1969. And it was in Poly Ballroom on Berkeley campus. And so I was the organizer for this conference, and I just wanted to give you a quick snapshot. And I think it tells you about one of the issues that helped prompt the creation of this conference. So I was talking to a bunch of men, Asian American men, on the Berkeley campus in November of '68, beginning of November, on a Friday afternoon, about 3 in the afternoon. And so the topic evolved into talking about beautiful Asian American women on campus. Guys do that, right? And this is kind of like Spike Lee's, you know, Jungle Fever scene there. And so one of the fellows, his name was Gary, talked about that he asked this one woman out, and she said no. And Gary made the mistake of asking her, well, why not? I don't think the guys had really asked why not, but they did. He did. And she said, because I only date white men. And from there, that prompted a discussion which led to this January 11th conference 2 months later. But that's how it started. And during that conference, at lunch, my friend Maurice Williams, who was a BSU, Black Student Union representative, talked to me at lunch and said, we met last night, we're going out, are you with us? And we met last night, the Black Student Union met, we're going out, we voted to go out on strike because the Berkeley administration refused to add Black study courses. And are you with us? Are the Asian American students with the Black students? The term African American wasn't used until 20 years later. And so this is a little bit of information. This is a flyer we developed. And for those of you who may have taken early Asian American study classes, this is the catalog for Sacramento State. There it started in 1970, so ethnic studies and specifically Asian American studies started around the nation, and but because we were so, you know, really at stage one, we had to make up our own flyers and brochures and pass it out to students when they were registering in order to get students enrolled in the very first Asian American classes. This is the way it was. So that's the brief backdrop, historical backdrop to ethnic studies, and specifically Asian American studies.